Hello and welcome to New Filmmakers Los Angeles in partnership with Movie Maker magazine. My name is Danny DeLillo and we're here at the South Park Center and I'm here with Mike Seeley with his documentary, Exiled. Let's take a look at a clip.
I was in over 160 combat missions. I fought for the country. I lived there my whole life. America's my home.
Hello.
Hi, Daddy.
I miss you.
Miss you too.
My name's Hector Barajas and I served with the U.S. military. After 6 years, I was deported. I think we deserve to be back with our families.
Mike, thank you so much for being here.
Sure. Thanks for having me, yeah.
Well, congratulations on your documentary. I was so moved and it really riled me up, the story, and everybody needs to watch it. But for those that haven't seen it, tell us a brief synopsis of your film.
Okay, yeah, so Exiled it's a story of two U.S. veterans who were deported and their experience of living as deportees in Tijuana, Mexico, just over the border. So that's the elevator pitch right there.
Yeah.
But it's we decided, to focus on the stories of two guys, even though there are probably thousands of U.S. veterans that have been deported, just as a way to talk about the issue. Yeah.
So just to clarify, these are amazing humans that have fought for the United States of America, and once they've done that, they've been deported back to their country of origin, right. Which for me is just insanely hard to get my head around, that someone that's put their life on the line for this country. I mean, obviously I can see where the inspiration came from, but when was that moment for you where you're like, I have to make this story and showcase these lives of these people that have had to be exiled from this country?
Well, I mean, yeah, the first I just heard of it actually from my wife was in Tijuana for another project. She met Hector, one of the veterans in the film, and he was just standing at the border handing out pamphlets saying like, look, we're deported veterans, and she brought that home, and I was, so yeah, like the moment that I saw that, I was like, what's up with this? I just had to look into it, because it's like you were saying, it's kind of like it just doesn't compute. It's sort of, for me, I'm just like, okay, if you fight, if you volunteer, you're basically put your life on the line for this country. How could you be deported? So I just gave Hector a call because his phone number's on the pamphlet. I was like, hey, Hector, just because I figured he got tons of media coverage. Yeah. Because it's such a crazy story. Yeah. But he hadn't really. There's been small media coverage over the years, and I just felt like there was a room for, after talking to him a few more times, I thought there was a room for a more in-depth sort of exploration of their stories, out there. And there's still plenty of room.
And not to, we'll go into more about Hector in a second, but this is not even a small number. This is something like, is it 34,000? How many thousands of people that have been deported?
Well, no, so that number that's in the film, the 34,000 was a figure from a few years ago from the Pentagon saying that's how many non-citizens are serving in the military. So wow. that means...
people don't even know that, I think,
right.
That's incredible.
So that's probably changed. Every year it's a little different, so I'm not sure what the current figures are, but that means that, and when you're it's not that they're undocumented, it's that they have green cards. Yeah. They're legal permanent residents. And when you're a legal permanent resident, you can volunteer and serve in the armed forces like any other American citizen. The only difference is that when you get out of the military, you're not automatically granted citizenship. So these vets, these soldiers have to go by the rules, follow all the procedures to continue to be citizens, and for whatever reason, some of it is misinformation, some of it is just negligence on the vets' parts. Some of them just don't get it together to get the paperwork done. They find themselves deported after minor infractions, and once they've gotten
crazy.
back.
I mean, the irony is you can fight for this country, but you can't vote if you're a green card holder.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Now, as a documentary filmmaker, what was Hector's response like when you said that you want to follow his journey in this? Because I mean, you know, it's different when you make a documentary because you're really getting into their personal experiences and their lives. What was his reaction to it?
He was totally open. I mean, at that point when I contacted him, and he still is like this, he's sort of like all media is good media, you know, any press is good press. So he's just like, whatever, you know, he was, you know, in a way, I wouldn't say desperate, but just pushing, charging to get his message out there and get anybody to listen. Because, I mean, it's a little bit of, I think the reason why it was hard for it to get media traction was mainly because, you know, technically, these vets that are deported have committed crimes, and they have, most of them, gone to jail for what they've done in the States, but then after that, then they're deported. So that this criminal the criminal idea, or this, you know, criminalization of sort of this sort of situation sort of makes it a little less sort of like easy to sort of deal with.
But the saddest thing about that, I mean, one thing that was really difficult to deal with that is that, you know, it just goes to show about the stuff that they were actually in prison for, you know, shows that this country also needs prison reform as well, because, I mean, these weren't huge things that these people had done. They may have just gotten the wrong crowd of people, but didn't deserve to not get their rights to health care and all those other things as well that you get, obviously, once you've, you know, fought for this country. I was so moved by this. I think it was, honestly, I feel like every American household should watch your documentary, because, you know, it really is powerful, and I think it, you know, really, people don't know about it. I really believe not enough people know about these situations and how saddening that is. You know, obviously, when you make a documentary, you obviously become affected by, you know, your subjects, as we call them, you know, in a documentary. But what was it like filming this, and did you discover new things when you were filming that you were surprised about once you'd obviously started to film?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the adventure of, making documentaries for me is really like, I come out a different person on the other side. And for this film, it's more than true. I definitely learned, it was really interesting because I'm not a veteran. I'm not, you know, I wasn't in the criminal justice system in any meaningful way beyond my teenage years. You know, like a lot of these guys, and most of these guys are Latino, Mexican American. There are some people from other countries that are also deported vets down there. But so I don't have, you know, the experience or point of view that life experience that a lot of these guys have. And so it was interesting trying to just keep that in mind, that I'm, you know, I can imagine and observe and listen to as much as what their experiences is, but I'm never really gonna know what it's like to be a deported vet, you know, and it was just that, for this film specifically, trying to translate their story and tell their story in an honest way that was true to them, true to their stories, was the biggest kind of challenge and also learning experience for me.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that it wasn't part of your world, but you still felt the compassion to make it. I think that's really, really wonderful. First, just very quickly, I would say, like, what, you know, in terms of how long did it take to shoot? Because obviously, documentary does take a lot of time. How long was your edit, and what was your biggest challenge that you had?
Okay, yeah. So the production lasted from, let me get this straight. We finished 2017 early. So we started 2015, and end to end, the whole project was like almost exactly 2 calendar years. Production was probably about a year and a half, and then we edited for a solid, probably 3 months, good 3 months, maybe 3 or 4 months. And we had the luxury of like editing some stuff, and then going back, getting some scenes, and then and we did that twice, sort of within the whole 2-year process. Wow. And that sort of helped, that definitely helped us sort of sharpen it in the end. And there was a whole storyline that we took out of another deported vet or a veteran who's not deported yet, but who's living in Hartford, Connecticut. He's a Jamaican national, and he's still fighting his case, trying to stay here in the U.S. with his family. So.
And what was your biggest challenge that you faced in making the project?
I mean, the funding. I know that's a boring answer to it, but just getting it funded was the toughest. It's definitely like a super indie project. I mean, I was producing and directing and shooting it, did some sound, with some of the edits. So it's like, yeah, so that was the biggest challenge, raising funds. A lot of media. It was a combination of media grants and crowdfunding that made it happen.
Fantastic.
But beyond that, really just the logistics of following like these real life stories in TJ and Tijuana, where some of these guys, especially Mauricio, who's in the film, his life is it's constantly changing. There's nothing secure about it, and he's struggling with PTSD as a result of his combat experience in Afghanistan, fighting for the army, and that on top of being deported, not having access to healthcare, having a baby.
I mean, it's just dealing with family life and everything else.
Having a baby alone is enough for
yeah.
most people. But it was so it was a challenge, kind of just trying to keep in touch and coordinate and capture some of their story and reflect it honestly.
Well, I mean, I think it was so powerful for our audience to experience it last night. What was your experience at New Filmmakers LA last night? And what was so great was that it was actually the first time that Hector was able to come and see it as well.
Yeah.
What was that whole experience for you last night?
It was great. I mean, it felt so great just to have him there. Like, I mean, I realized like during the screening that I've been to dozens of screenings now around the country, and he hasn't been able to be at any of them. So now that Hector is he became a citizen in April.
Amazing.
This is the first screening that he was able to attend, and it was in LA, which is close to his home in Compton.
Yeah.
So it just felt great.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So thanks for providing the venue for that.
Oh no, of course,
Yeah.
What's next for you?
Well, let's see. I'm working on a film now. It's in development about also about the criminal justice system, not about immigration so much as it's a collaboration, actually, co-direction with a formerly incarcerated man in New Orleans who is focused on helping young guys that are coming out of prison realize how they can deal with their situation and not go back to prison and get employment and all that stuff. So I'm really excited about it, actually.
You're just changing the world for your documentaries, basically, aren't you? That's
well,
fantastic.
I mean, I don't know. If we can raise awareness about some issues through these personal stories, and that's the goal. If we can, if in any way. And it's hard to measure how much change comes from a film, but all I know is that it's definitely necessary to provide a voice for some of these stories. So
it's amazing.
That's what we're trying to do if we can. Yeah.
You've got the most powerful platform in the moving image to do that, and I just want to say, thank you for sharing, Exile with us, and it needs to be continue to be celebrated, through America and beyond. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Danny.
So you're
I
welcome.
appreciate it.
Mike,
Yeah.
Exiled.